Okay, good evening. So right before Shavuos, we started Masechta Gittin. Just do a quick chazara of what we learned, and then we'll continue the Gemara. So we brought the opening Mishnah discussed a shliach lahilacha. We explained there's two types of shluchim. You have a shliach lahilacha and a shliach lakabbalah. In short, a shliach lahilacha is when the husband appoints a shliach, a messenger now, to deliver the get to his wife. So that's a shliach lahilacha. He's appointed as to be moilech, to bring the get to the next party. And then a shliach lakabbalah means a woman appoints a shliach to receive her get. And the basic nafkamina and halacha will be a shliach lahilacha, like we're going to learn in Daf Yud Beis. A shliach lahilacha could cause man that the wife doesn't receive the get, the shliach can pull back. It's a machlekes, but in short, the husband could pull back the get. However, if the woman appoints a shliach lakabbalah to receive the get, the minute that her shliach receives the get, she's divorced and she cannot retract her mind. So we brought a case of a shliach lahilacha is appointed now. He's bringing a get from Medina Sayam, like Rashi said, anywhere outside of Eretz Yisrael, Kol Chutz La'aretz is called Medina Sayam, and he's bringing the get from outside of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. So the Chachamim instituted a gzeira, and we're going to learn exactly why, that the shliach has to say, Befonai nichtav, in front of me the get was written, and Befonai nechtam, in front of me I saw two Eidim actually sign on the get. That's just what he testifies. Now, Rabbi Gamliel says that even if he brings it from Rekem to Cheger, like Rashi says, these are areas close to Eretz Yisrael, he also has to say, Befonai nichtav. Rabbi Eliezer is machmer and says, even if he brings it from Kfar Ludim to Lud, which is also very mamish next to Eretz Yisrael, he also has to say Befonai nichtav or Befonai nechtam. The Chachamim said that he only has to say Befonai nichtav or Befonai nechtam when he brings it from Medina Sayam to Eretz Yisrael, and from Eretz Yisrael to Medina Sayam, and the Gemara will explain exactly what the Chachamim are adding on the Tanakama. Okay, then Rav Shimon Gamliel says, even when he brings it from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, also he has to say Befonei nichtav u Befonei nechtam. And like Rashi says, the Gemara is going to explain one city that had two rulers, and they were makbid one city to go to another city. In other words, that they didn't really cross borders, and they were makbid one to another. So the halach is that they also have to say Befonei nichtav or Befonei nechtam. Now Rabbi Yehuda says that if you want to know the borders of Chutz La'aretz or outside Eretz Yisrael, so he said from Rekem eastwards, and Rekem is Kimizrach, has the din of outside of Eretz Yisrael, and then the Mishnah said Ashkelon to Darim, and Ashkelon has the din of Darim, and then we brought Taisus' question, as the Chayr, we know Ashkelon is in Eretz Yisrael, and then we said Aku and north, and Aku has the same din as Safon, that it's also in Chutz La'aretz. Then Rameir said that Aku has the din of Eretz Yisrael Gittin, and then the Mishnah concluded that somebody who brings in Eretz Yisrael a get does not need to say Befonei nichtav or Befonei nechtam. And if there's protesters, like Rashi explained, the husband comes along and says that this get is mezuyev, it's a forged get, so the halach is yiskayim b'choismav, that he has to bring edim or he has to bring others that recognize the signatures of the edim or chasumim lamata, and then the get is mekuyim. So we asked the Shaila, what is the reason why the Chachamim instituted Befonei nichtav or Befonei nechtam? Why is that any time a shliach brings a get from Medina Sayam to Eretz Yisrael, he has to say, in front of me it was written, and in front of me it was signed? So we brought two answers. Rabba said that the Fishain became the Shema, like Rashi says, that outside of Eretz Yisrael people are not Bnei Torah, and they don't know the dinim of the Shema, and since they don't know that a get, that because of law, the Torah says that the get has to be written the Shema for the woman, so we're worried that there's a problem, that the get wasn't written the Shema. So now the Shliach Lahilacha, by saying Befonei nichtav or Befonei nechtam, the Beis Din will ask him, okay, was it written the Shema? He'll answer yes, so we know that this get, Chutz La'aretz, was written Lishma. Rava says no, that's not the reason why we say Befonei nichtav or Befonei nechtam. The reason why the Chachamim instituted this gzeira, or this saying, is because Lefi she'ein edim mitzuyim l'kaima, which means that edim outside of Eretz Yisrael, the get is going to be brought in Eretz Yisrael, Now, we're going to see the shtar as 2 Eidim. We're not going to know if the shtar is a valid shtar or not. And the husband's going to come along and say, the get is mezuyif. So what do? By the aid, or I should say the shliach, by saying b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam, he's basically now verifying that these signatures on the shtar are a good shtar. So if the husband wants to come later and say it's mezuyif, we won't believe him. So the Gemara says, what's the nafkamina between the two? If you say lefi she'ein eidim mekim l'shma or lefi she'ein eidim mesuyim l'kaimes, the Gemara says the difference will be if da'asayu be'trei. We said that if 2 eidim bring the if 2 eidim outside of Eretz Yisrael, or let's say the husband appointed 2 eidim to be the shliach halacha. So if you say that outside of Eretz Yisrael they don't know the dinim of the shema, so they still have to say b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam. But if you say like Rava that the reason is because the fishein eidim mitzuyim l'kaima, the fact is you have 2 eidim that verify that this is a valid get. And so that aid, or I should say the husband that comes and tries to protest, will not be believed. Then the Gemara says, Inami, another nafkamin would be, Lemedina Beretz Yisrael, that if you say the reason is that Lefi she'ein bekim l'shma, so now people in Eretz Yisrael are bekim l'shma. But if you say it's mitzad, that Lefi she'ein eidim mitzuyim l'kaima, so then you will have the same nafkamina in Medina Beretz Yisrael. Or if in the case of, let's say, Medina b'Medina, Inami b'oisa Medina b'Medina Sayam. So also, if you say it's mitzad the fein she'ein eidim that they're not bekim l'shma, so over here you have the same din because outside of Eretz Yisrael they're not baki l'shma. But if you say it's mitzad the fein she'ein eidim mitzuyim l'kaima, so then over here in b'oisa Medina you'll have eidim to be mekayim the shtar. So the Gemara asks on Rabbah, who says the she'ein bekim l'shma, l'chayra, every time you should need 2 eidim. Why do we believe this shliach leilacha, this 1 aid to say b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam? You always need to have 2 eidim any time you have a din, edus or shtar or whatever. You always need to have 2 eidim to verify that this is the din. So the Gemara answers and said, the Gemara says maybe is only when you have a suffix b'chlal, if it's a chelev, if the piece was either chelev or shuman, there's no chazaka that it's asur. But when you have, for example, this Eishes Ish, which there was a chazaka that she's Eishes Ish, maybe we will not believe 1 aid to say b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtav. So the Gemara says, really, this is where we left off yesterday, that really, Roy Bekinhin, really, even outside of Eretz Yisrael, people are Baki Lishma. Now, and the Gemara says, even according to the mayor, who we know is Choyish Lemouti, nevertheless, he will agree that most people who write the get, most Sofrim that write the get, even outside of Eretz Yisrael, are Baki in Lishma. So really, even the Shliach doesn't need to say anything. When the Shliach brings a get from Medina Sayam to Eretz Yisrael, he shouldn't really need to say anything. So why did the Chachamim require? Chachamim require, like Rashi says, is perhaps not that the Sefer doesn't know about the Shema. Perhaps this individual is going to somehow pass by some store or going to find a get that has his name, mamash his name, and his wife's name, not realizing that the get needs to be written Lishma. He's going to come along, great, I saved myself a couple $100. Now I'm going to go and give this get to my wife, and it's not going to be Lishma for the wife. So, if so, why do we believe 1 aid? So we left off the other days because Mishumi Guna, because we don't want this woman to be stuck. And if, because maybe the husband, in general, maybe we're not going to find two Eidim that are going, for example, let's say the husband's going to say, 2 Eidim, I'm not going to be able to find 2 Eidim to go to the place of my wife, and he's not going to send a get to his wife, so he's going to say, you know what, it's so complicated, let me just not give a get, and now she's going to be in Aguna. So Akila Be'Rabban. Okay, that's where we stopped, that's where we left off the other day. So now the Gemara asks, Hi Kulahu, you're saying this is a Kula Midrabanan that we believe 1 aid, we believe the Shtiach La'ilacha to say B'fanei Nichtav U'B'fanei Nechtam, and we want to be making Mitzad Guna. Frag the Gemara, Echumrahu, L'chair, this is going to be Echumra for the wife. Why? Or so the Gemara explains, if you're going to need to have 2 Eidim to be made, that the get was written lishma, so then loy osi bal ma'aru pasale. The husband cannot come later and start saying, no, this get was not written lishma. Why? Because you have two Eidim that came along. There's two Eidim who are shliach leilacha. They came and said that this get was written lishma. So the husband's going to say, what's written lishma? The Torah says you always believe two Eidim. However, in this case, chad osi bal uma'ar pasale. The fact that you're believing one Eid, this shliach leilacha, as one Eid to say b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtav, what's going to happen? You're setting yourself up for a catastrophe, because the husband could come along and say, he's tiny that it was written lishma. I'm telling you, it never happened. The whole get was mezuyif. So the Gemara says, the Chachamim should have instituted that two Eidim need to testify b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam. Why were they makel and saying that one Eid is believed? The husband can come later and protest on the kashrus of the get. So the Gemara answers and says, it's not a problem. Why? Even though Marmar, since we're going to learn later on Daf Heyamid base, the Gemara says, in front of how many Eidim does this shliach leilacha need to say the words b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtav? So you have in the get, you have the ksiva of the get, which the get we're going to learn later. Our Mishnah says that the ksiva has to be lishma and the chasim has to be lishma, right? B'fanei nichtav, according to Tarabba, b'fanei nichtav lishma and b'fanei nechtam lishma. So which means is that the side of ksiva and the side of chasim have to be written lishma. Now, so let's say the Sefer writes the get lishma and the chasima now was also lishma. Now there's another step in the get. When the shliach leilacha now brings the get, he has to testify in front of either two or three Eidim, either in front of let's say two people, or in front of a Beis Din. He has to say the words b'fanei nechtav or b'fanei nechtav. So now, he says, Kivan dar Mar, since the Mar says, b'fnei kama neistan law, in front of how many people does the Eid? In front of how many people does the person have to say? In front of how many Eidim does the shliach have to say b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam? So he says, Rabbi Yechlan, Rabbi Chanina. It's a machlekes between Rabbi Yechlan and Rabbi Chanina. Chad Amar 1, Mad Amar says, b'fnei shnayim, in front of two Eidim. Chad Amar, and the second opinion says, b'fnei shlosh, it has to be mamash in front of a Beis Din. So if the shliach knows that when he gives the get to the wife, he has to say it mamish in front of either two or three people, so mikari medek daik. L'chatchil is going to be, the shliach is going to be very medayik in the details of the get when he receives it from the husband, and he's not going to give the get to the wife unless he knows that the husband mamash wants this to happen, and he's not going to regret giving the get. And what's he worried about? That the husband's going to protest? The shliach is not going to give the get to the wife because he knows that it's not a private thing. It's either in front of two people or in front of three people. So he's going to make sure for the husband. Are you sure you want to do this? He's going to see the lushma. He's going to see that the Eidim signed on it. He's going to make sure the husband wants this. So now the chances of the husband coming and being ma'arer is very, very slim. Okay, so now we explain Shittas Rabbah. So now he explains Rav the Amar. And now we're going to ask on Rav. Rav the Amar, according to Rav, says that the shliach has to say b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam. Why? Because in Eretz Yisrael, you're not going to find people in Eretz Yisrael who recognize the chasim of the get from people who sign outside of Eretz Yisrael. You should need to have two Eidim to be made, two Eidim that should be made on the chasimas of the get. Like just like every single shtar, whenever you have a document in Beis Din, and Beis Din now sees a document, let's say the malva gives the malva comes and says the leva owes me $100,000, and the malva has a shtar, and the shtar has two Eidim written on the shtar. So now we don't necessarily believe the shtar. You need to have two Eidim that recognize the chasima of the witnesses of the shtar. So just like every single shtar, you need to have two Eidim that recognize the signatures. Until then, we're not going to use the shtar. It's not going to be a valid shtar. So the same thing over here. Why does the Mishnah, why does the Chachamim believe one Eid to say b'fanei nichtav, b'fanei nechtam? Every single shtar you need to have two Eidim. So the Gemara says Eid echad nemabisun. The same answer that when it comes to Isser v'heter, you're asking about Dinim Amanis. Dinim Amanis talking these two Eidim to be verify the shtar. But when it comes to Dinei of Isser v'heter, one Eid is believed. So the Gemara says, why do we say Eidecha Nama B'Yisur? Why do I say Eidecha does Nama B'Yisur? And the same answers could go in Chaticha Savish Chelev, Savish Shuman. If you have a doubt if it's a Chaticha of Chelev, which is also to eat, or Shuman, which is what to eat. The Loi is Chazik Yisura, which over there, that piece of meat, doesn't have a Chazaka, it's a suffix. I don't know if it's Shuman, I don't know if it's Chelev. But in our case, in the kashrus of the get, is chazik yisuda eishes ish. At least you have a chazaka to work with that this woman is a eishes ish. Now, so now you're coming and saying that this aid it's a suffix b'chlal if you trust this aid or not. So you're saying eidecha nama b'yisurin. What is eidecha nama b'yisurin? The chatchila, when the thing that he's testifying out is a suffix b'chlal if it's us or not. But this aid is testifying on something which has a chazaka that she's a eishes ish. Then it's have a davar shebe'ever. So the chayda we shouldn't believe. Ask the Gemara also as well, and as well the edus of the get is davar shebe'ever. Also the woman is a eishes ish, which is a iser mamash iser arayis. Ve'ein davar shebe'ever pachas mishnayim. And the din is whenever it comes to davar shebe'ever, you need to have two eidim to testify. So why do I believe one aid to be mekayim this get? So the Gemara says it's like this: B'dinu really the kim shtaris nami liliboy. You should know really. Min hadin, when it comes to a regular document and a shtar, and you have two signatures that are signed on the shtar, you should know you don't need to have min hatayra, to have people, other edim, verify that these signatures are indeed valid. Why? What? The edim on the edim that are written on the shtar, min hatayra is enough. Why? The darish lakish. As again, the Bekim stars time the boy, the Reish Lakish, like Reish Lakish says, the Reish Lakish says, Eidim achasum al shtar. Whenever you have Eidim which are signed on a legal document, Nasu kimi shenechkedu edusan beveistin. You should know it's like they were investigated in Beistin. Like Rashi says, why? Look at the Rashi says, a person doesn't have the chutzpah to go and forge a document. Why? Like the Pnei Yeshua explains, because it's a milsa David legluye. Milsa David legluye, a person doesn't have the chutzpah.
So one is enough?
Oh, one second. So now, in general of a shtar, mitzah midei raisa, whenever you have two eidim that sign on a shtar, or a person is bringing a shtar, showing that there's two eidim written on the shtar, a person doesn't have the chutzpah, like Rashi says, to be mezayah of the shtar. And like the Pnei Yeshua says, because it's like something which will eventually it's a milsa David. So midei raisa, you really don't need to have authentication. Now, but Rabbanan hu da'atzrichi. It was the Chachamim who said that you need to be mekayim the shtar. Why? Because they were chayshish for ziyuf. You know, people later on in those generations, they had no. In other words, like they say, what's the lashon? They say, "Ein adam me'ez b'fnei bal chayver." Right? You see people that are the whole time. A guy comes to you, owe me money. Says, "Ein adam." Adam, a person, a mensch, it's not full of shkarim. A person's not a mensch, it may. So the Chachamim saw that people, minadin, normal people, they don't have, like Rashi says, the lashon is lechotzav inish leziyufi. However, the Chachamim are the ones that still say fart that they were choshesh for ziyuf, and therefore they said that you need to have two eidim to verify the signatures that are written on the shtar. But in our case, in regards to a get, that a person brings this get from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, mishum iguna. Since we don't want this woman to be stuck, we don't want her to be an aguna. Akilu be'Rabbana, the Chachamim were mekel and said that we could trust this one aid, even though it's one aid. We are soymich. Why are we soymich? Because midei raisa, really the shtar that this aid brings, it's already enough. Okay, so now the Gemara says, it's hard to, I can't see the words there. I want to ask him to turn on the lights. Okay, so where it says, hi. Okay, maybe if to call him, sometimes he doesn't hear the messages. Okay, where it says, hi, kulahu, is this really a kula? Chumrahu, l'chayr, it's a chumra. Why? The matzich today, because if you're going to need to have. So now the Gemara says, again, the same thing. According to Rava, l'chayra, you're saying this is a kula, it's a chumra. Why? Today, because if you're going to need to have two eidim to mekayim the get, so the husband cannot come now and again protest on the get because you have two eidim that said we saw the writing of the get and we saw the signatures of the get. But again, the husband will come and say it's mezuyif. So the Chachamim should still require you to have two eidim. So the Gemara says again, How much do you have to give before a nichta? How much in front? Again, the same answer we learned off Hayom base. In front of how many edim? In front of how many people does this shliach leilach have to say before a nichta before a nechtam? So we have machlekes. So again, mikarei medak dayek v'leyasul nafshei. Again, the same answer. He's going to be medayek and make sure that he is going to check his cards before he actually he shoots the bullets. Okay. So now the Gemara says. So we explained Rabba, we explained Rava. We asked questions, same answers. So now the Gemara says, Rava, and according to Rava, who says that the reason why the Chacham instituted the shliach to say b'fanei nichta b'fanei nechtam is because lefi she'ein edim mitzuyim l'kaimai. Again, in Eretz Yisrael, you're not going to find edim that are going to recognize the signatures of a shtar and chutz la'aretz. If we get the chutz la'aretz, asks the Gemara, my time Rabba. Why doesn't Rava learn like Rabba? That the reason why they instituted b'fanei nichta b'fanei nechtam is because lefi she'ein edim, because the people of outside of Eretz Yisrael are not baki l'shma. So Amalach, Rabbi will tell you, Miktani b'fanei nichtav l'shma, b'fanei nechtam l'shma. Read the Mishnah. The Mishnah doesn't say that the Chachamim instituted. If Rabbi was correct, so the Chayr, the Takana should be b'fanei nichtav l'shma, b'fanei nechtam l'shma. So why didn't Elamai, the fact that they don't add the words lishma, must be that the reason why they instituted b'fanei nechtam is not because like Rabbi says that we're worried that it wasn't written lishma, but rather the reason is because the fishein edim mitzuyim l'kaima. So the Gemara says, okay, so it's a very good teretz, and for the Gemara, so for the Gemara, according to Rabbi who says. According to Rabba, why Taka doesn't the Mishnah mention Lishma? So what it says is Bidin hu delisni hachi. Really, the Mishnah should have said b'fanei nichtav Lishma, b'fanei nechtam Lishma. Ella, rather the Chacham word the imepashle di Buddha. If we're going to make this person prolong his words, then osi lemigze the shliach might come and cut off. In other words, if we're going to come along and say that he has to say b'fanei nichtav Lishma, b'fanei nechtam Lishma, 6 words he has to remember. It's a lot. So we're worried that the shliach will forget some of the nusach, and instead of saying b'fanei nichtav l'shma, he'll only say b'fanei nechtav. And like Rashi says, the din is that kol mishanim matpeh shetav chachamim. If you're going to change, if you're going to deviate from the verbiage that the chachamim gave, so the din is the get is puzzle. And what's the problem with the get this puzzle? It's a big problem. If she's going to get married to somebody else, the vlad will be a mamzer. So the chachamim.
So why can't they be like a proceedings with the rabbanim?
Receive it, tell them. Very good. 1 second. Very good. It's exactly the Gemara's going to answer. Very good. So Rabba's telling you, you're right that the Chachamim wanted the Chachamim wanted to institute Lishma. Why didn't they? Because they're worried that people are going to forget all 6 words. They're going to forget Lishma, and then you're deviating from what the Chachamim instituted. And then the problem is, she thinks she's already divorced. She's going to go get married now to the next guy. She's really not divorced. She gets married. She gets pregnant. The vlad's a mamzer. So the Gemara says, okay, 1 second. Hashtanami, but here also, if you're saying that she doesn't say, she just says, or he just says, it's possible the shliach will also just say b'fanei. He'll forget to say b'fanei nichtav l'shma and b'fanei nechtam l'shma. So in other words, why are you saying that when it comes to 3 words, that he's going to forget, but 2 words he won't? So the Gemara says like this. We know the human psychology. We know. A person is shaykh that a person, if he has to say b'fanei nichtav l'shma, b'fanei nechtam l'shma, that'll forget to say the word l'shma, and then you have a whole problem that you're mishanim tevea from matpeh shetav chachamim, and then the vav will be a mamzer. But chodem mitarte, 1 word from 2 words like goyis, it will not be goyis. Now, Mati, what you're saying, so where do you get the l'shma is? So the answer is that by saying b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam, so then the Beis Din says, okay, was it written l'shma? He might forget l'shma. The Beis Din knows how to ask. That's according to 1 beer of Rashi. Okay, so now the Gemara says v'rabbo. So now we explained why. Now the same back and forth. There's a lot. The whole first few blats of Gittins like this. So in a way, it's easier. But if you learn in the yeshivas and they're very, they're very heavy over here. But we'll learn Pashup Pshat. Okay. According to Rabba, who says that the reason why the Chacham said b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam is because we're worried that it's not written l'shma. My time l'makarav. Why didn't you say that the reason is that l'fisha ein edim mitzuyim l'kaima saget? So Amalach, Rabba will tell you, Im Kain, if Rav was really correct, that the reason why the Chacham established you to say b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam is because we're worried to be mekayim the get, because we're worried that if you wouldn't say b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam, we're worried that he'll bring the shtar with Eidim who are chasumim, and you're not going to be able to verify the signatures. So if that's really true, so then b'fanei nechtam v'sulai. All the takana should have been is to saying, what are we worried about? We're worried we have to verify the signatures. In other words, we don't care about the ksiva, we care about the chasima. So based on that, all the chachamim should have said is b'fanei nechtam b'sulai, b'fanei nichtav lamali. So why did the chachamim say that you also have to say the words b'fanei nechtam? Shma mina must be being lishma, that the reason why they said b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam is because the shliach needs to be made that the get was written lishma. Nah, because and if Rava was correct, all the chachamim would institute is b'fanei nechtav. So the Gemara says, okay. So same thing, but Rava, what's Rava going to answer? Why, according to Rava, why Take did the chacham answer? Insert the two words b'fanei nichtav. So my answer says, "B'din hu delisni achi." Really, minadin. The Mishnah should have Take only said b'fanei nechtav. Ella, but the chacham are worried about something else. The im kain. If this is true, in other words, if they would have just instituted b'fanei nichtav and not b'fanei nechtam and not b'fanei nichtav, then what would happen? What happened is that osi lechlufe bekim shtaris ba'alma. In other words, over here you have a kula that one aid is believed by the shtar. It's a kula by Gittin. So if they would only say b'fanei nechtam, the person seeing it, okay, I see that by the get one aid is believed, so it must be that every single time by shtaris one aid is believed. So by saying b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam, what are you showing? No, this is a din miyuchad by get. That's nothing to do with other dinim. By Gittin we believe one, and by saying b'fanei nechtam, this person somehow will know that this is a zaydik din, this is a special din. Usually shtaris you need to have two. Okay, fine. So it's a good answer. Rabbi will tell you 1 second. Me dummy. Would the person or the shliach think that just because one aid is believed, you're saying, if it would have said just b'fanei nechtam, so I would say that just like by get one aid is believed, so I would say by other stars also one aid is believed. And now that I'm saying the words b'fanei nechtam, the person knows that it's a special din by Gittin. So Rabbi will tell you, I would never b'chlal ever think that Gittin and shtaris have what to do with each other. In other words, I would never b'chlal just have them to mix up and say just by get one aid is believed, so also by shtaris also one aid is believed. Why? And he says three differences. He says first of all, the people who are the roy and the people that are seeing it know that there's a special din by somebody who brings the get. Why? Because number one is hasam in regards to the kiyum of other stories. As long as the Eidim say the words yadinon, if the Eidim say that we know about the signatures or we recognize the signatures, that's already enough. Hacha, but in regards to the get, the shliach has to say the words befanai. He has to say befanai nechtam. In other words, I'll never get confused because by a regular shtar, as long as he says yadinon, the Eidim say yadinon, that's already enough. But we know that at least you have to say by a get, you have to say the words befanai. So everybody knows that the get of the shliach is different than other shtaris. Number two, hasam, in regards to other shtaris, isha loy mehemna. A woman is not believed to be made on the chasima of the Eidim. Because we know a woman is puzzle for Eidus. Hacha, but in regards to a get, Isha, a woman who was sent, if let's say the husband sends this woman to, a woman is believed, let's say a woman has to bring a get, so Mehemna, she's believed to say, in this case of get, b'fanei nechtam, we're going to learn in the Mishnah later on, the Chof Gimel Amud Beis, that a woman is believed. Number three, Hasam, in regards to Kiyum Shtaris, Baal Davar Le Mehemnan. A person, the Baal Davar, the person who we're speaking about, is not believed to be Mekayim B'shtar. As we know, Ein Adam Neman Lohoyiz L'Zakis Atzmai. A person is not believed to be to testify, right? To testify about himself. Hacha, in regards to Gittin, Baal Davar Mehemnan, the Baal Davar themselves is believed. In other words, if a woman, and like Rashi explains, that if a woman is going to bring a get from Medinas Hayam, and the Torah shlichus, which means the husband gives the woman the get and tells the woman, okay, this is your gitich, this is your get, But the Chalois Gittin is only going to apply. In other words, you're my shliach to divorce yourself, and this based in, and the Chalois of the Gittin is only going to apply when you get there. So that's Lashon. Al Tizgari be only in a based in Eretz Yisrael. And B'tanai that she has to say B'fanei Nichtav u'B'fanei Nechtav. So basically, according to Rabbi will tell you there's three differences between a shtaris and gittin, so I'll never come confused between a get and a shtar. So Rava, so now the Gemara says Rava will tell you Atu Hacha Ki Amrin Yadi. First of all, Atu Hacha Ki Amri Yadinon Milay Mehemne. Let's say the shluchim who bring the get would say in a different lashon. They wouldn't say the lashon of B'fanei Nichtav u'B'fanei Nechtam, but they would say, you know what, Yadinon, or we know about the signatures Milay Mehemne. Would we not believe them? In other words, the whole reason why we want, according to Rava, is B'fanei Nichtav, is to be Mekayim the shtar, so we don't care, according to Rava, what the Lashonis are. If they would have said Yadinon, we would also believe it. So, V'kivan D'chi Amri Yadinon Mehemne, and if the Shluchim would have said Yadinon, or we know about the signatures, we would also believe it. And therefore, so since if the Edom would have come along and said Yadinon, the get according to Rava would have been okay. So now that you're saying Yadinon, I could mix that up and think that just like it works by get, it works by one aid believes by other stars. It's interesting how the Gemara doesn't, when it comes to the other two differences, that's casually the Gemara leaves it out. Just only, in other words, Rabbi, the Gemara says there's three different differences. So he answered the first reason. What about the idea of Ishalei Mehemna, about Baldavar Mehemna? The Gemara doesn't give it. I'm sure that Yishanim and Acharim speak about this. I didn't see it, but I'm sure there's many answers. Okay. Now the Gemara says, well, Rabbi Da'amar, and according to Rabbi who says that the reason why the Shtiach has to say B'fanei Nichtav is because the Vishaim Bekin, because the people outside of Eretz Yisrael are not Baki the Shema, then, right, the Vishaim Bekin the Shema. So now the question is like this. My high Tana, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? The boy Ksiv Lishma or boy Chasim Lishma? Who is the Tana of our Mishnah that holds that you need to have the Ksiv Lishma and the Chasim needs to be Lishma? Again, according to Rabbi who says that the reason why the Chachamim said B'fanei Nichtav or B'fanei Nechtam is because the people outside of Eretz Yisrael are not Baki Lishma. What are they not Baki Lishma? You're saying that the Ksiva of the get has to be Lishma and the Chasima of the get has to be Lishma of the get. So the question is, who is that opinion? And the Gemara explains. Reb Meir, if it's the Shita of Reb Meir, just before we continue, this is a very famous machlekes between Reb Meir and Reb Eliezer. If Eidei Chasima Karsi or Eidei Chasima Karsi. In other words,
Where's the machlokes?
Where?
Where is it going down the machlokes?
It's all over Gittin.
All over Gittin? It's
Yeah.
not like another Masechtas?
The Chaf Aleph.
I'm saying it's not from a different Masechtas?
No, the Chaf Aleph. You say the machlekes isn't Gittin. B'chlal.
From later on.
Yeah. So let's look inside and then I'll explain. Now, either Meir, if it's a Meir holds that, if it's a Meir holds Chasima boy. According to the Meir, he holds that Chasima needs to be the Shema, and Ksiva, when it comes to the Ksiva, le boy the Shema. And Rashi explains why. Because the pasuk says, "V'kos of law, sefer krisus." The Torah says that you have to write for the woman a sefer krisus. Now, according to the Meir is going to learn that when it says "v'kos of law," it's not going on Ksiva, it's going on the Chasima, which means that the Chasima has to be Lishma. So Rashi, and the Rashi explains, "V'kos of law, sefer krisus law," which means Lishma, which means that if the signatures were Lishma, even if the Ksiva was not Lishma, according to Rameir, that will be okay. Why? Again, because Rameir holds that Eidei Chasima Karti, that what the Chalais of the Gittin only is, we look at who are the signatures.
You can get a get that was already written up for somebody else.
As long as the Chasima, the Tnan, like we learned, and this is like I quoted before, in the Mishnah of Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, according to Meir, ein koisfin b'mechubel lakarka. You're not allowed to write a get if it's connected to the ground. For example, if let's say something is growing on the floor, and now you want to use that material to write the get, the halacha is that you're not allowed to write it. Now, b'di'evet, ksavay al mechubel lakarka, if you went ahead, the sefer, let's say, or somebody would have went ahead and actually wrote the get when it's mechubel lakarka, and then tlusha, you ripped it off from the ground.
Bark in the tree.
Yeah, and then you ripped it off the ground, or you ripped it out of the ground, you plucked it out of the ground, chasamai, and then you signed it, unasana law, and then you gave it to her, kosher. Now, the Torah says, because of the Sefer Krisus v'nasam biyada, you have to write it. So like Rashi says, he learns that the get is kosher as long as the Nesina and the Ksiva were done and the Chasima were done right after each other. In other words, what?
You have to be toilet.
Yeah. So according to the Shita, the Chiddush is the Ksiva. The Chiddush is that, right, that the get is not kosher unless, like Rashi says, unless the Chasim and the Nesina were done right after each other. But the point, one second. The point is that if the Ksiva was done Shiloi Lishma and the Chasima was done Lishma, for example, in this case, when the get was written, let's say mechuber karka, and then you plucked it out, and the chasima was done properly, the halacha is that this is okay. Why? Because he's going to learn the kosav is going on the chasima and not on the ksiva. Now, Akabana, what do you see from here? You see from this Mishnah that according to the mayor, as long as the chasima is okay, then I don't care about the ksiva. Now, our Mishnah said that you need to have the ksiva and the chasima both lishma. What comes out from a mayor? A mayor is going to hold that only the chasim has to be the shema, then not the ksiva. Why again? Because Shitas mayor holds that Eide chasima karti, that the chalais of the Gittin applies only when there is only that we care about the chasima.
But why does he give an example about the mechuber? Why does he just give an example of a get that's written for somebody else and you just
Do you have in mind?
it wasn't signed?
I don't know.
It is signed.
I'm saying, could you have in mind that it's mechuber also? Like, if it's mechuber, that makes it shema. Like, if you're like, if it's still mechuber, and you just write it when it's mechuber.
It has to be written.
What?
When it's mechuber, and you write it as mechuber. So it makes it not shema. Like, it's mechuber to the karka, you start writing on it.
Then according to the mayor, the ksiva is not a
So
problem.
no, I'm saying, it looks like the mechuber, that makes it lo shema. Like, if water been mechuber.
No, we don't care. The cost of law, like Rashi says, is going.
It's mobile to the mechuber part.
No, it's going. That's the whole chiddush.
Example that's written for somebody else.
Okay, but the point is, let's not get sidetracked. The point is that according to the mayor, the chasim has to be the shema, the ksiva doesn't have to be the shema. Now, why again? Because Eidei chasima karti. Now, Rebbe Elazar, if it's Rebbe Elazar holds that the chlal he holds that midiraisa, the get, according to him, the get doesn't need to have any signatures. Now, so if it's Rabbi Elazar, why? Because he holds Eidei mesira karti. He holds that midiraisa, how is this woman divorced? Is when two Eidim see the husband give the woman the divorce, the get, that is the chalais of the Gittin. Eidim mesira karti. It's a very, very famous machlekes, again, here in the Chof Aleph. Just we have to know these terminologies. You have to know, like we said, shliach le'elocha, shliach le'kabbalah, and then eidim mesire, eidim karti.
That the husband's giving it over?
Yeah, so in other words, when we say, the Torah says because of law, what's the ikar of the get? According to Rabbi Meir, the ikar is the chasima on the shtar, and Rabbi Elazar is going to tell you midiraisa, you don't even need to have signatures on the get. As long as the husband gives the wife a get, and there's two eidim that saw the process, that's okay. Okay, so again, now the question is either Rabbi Elazar chasima ksiva boy. According to Rabbi Elazar is going to hold that the ksiva needs to be lishma, but the chasima loy boy. Why? Because the cost of law is simply the cost of law that the get has to be written lishma. So who is the Tana of our Mishnah? So now the Gemara says this: if you're going to say Leilim Rabbi Elazar be'emes, our Tana is Rabbi Elazar who holds that Eidei mesira karti. L'chayra, why does our Mishnah? So why do you need to have ksiv lishma? So he's going to say boy, the Rabbi Elazar chasim lishma midiraisa. Why does Rabbi Elazar say you don't need to have chasim lishma? That's midiraisa. Avo midrabanan, but midrabanan you need to have lishma. Maybe so when our Mishnah says that maybe get midiraisa tzarshim b'fanei nichtav that it needs to be lishma, right? So I'm sorry that so he's going to say like this: B'fanei nichtav, that's midiraisa. B'fanei nechtam, that it has to be the chasima lishma. Maybe that's only midrabanan, right? Midrabanan, and the Mishnah is like cool, like Rabbi Elazar. The Mishnah says you can't say that. Why? Because I'm going to show you later on in Daf Pei Vav and Aleph, shloisha gittin psulim midrabanan. There's 3 gittin that are pasul lechatchila midrabanan. And one of these gittin are a get that does not have signatures. Now, Rabbi Elazar argues in the Tanna Kamma and holds, even the chatchila, you're allowed to marry a woman with this get. And Rabbi Elazar in that Mishnah will hold even midrabanan you don't need to have lishma. In other words, Shitas Rabbi Elazar is that you never need to have any signatures on the get, even midrabanan, because he's going to hold again Eidei Mesira Karti, and we see in that case of there's a Shloisha Gittin Psulim midrabanan. Tanakama hold that if there's no signature on there, it's possible that Rabbanan. Rabbi Elazar over there argues and says, even lechatchila, you could use this type of get. Okay, Tanana he says this: Shloisha Gittin Psulim. There are 3 Gittin that are possible that Rabbanan. Now, if Nisis, if let's say this woman used this get and got married to a second person, have Vlad kosher, the Vlad is going to be kosher. In other words, even though lechatchila you can't get married with this get, but the Eved, after they get married, we're going to say the get is a good get. Now, Kosav, what is these cases? Kosav b'chsav yodeh. If the husband wrote the get with his own signature, and ve'ein alav edim, there's no edim on the get. Yesh alav edim, if there's edim signed on it, ve'ein bo izman, but there's no date on the get. Yesh bo izman, ve'ein bo eid echad. Or if let's say there's the time of the get, but there's no eid echad. So the halacha is, hare elu shloisha gitim psulin, midrabanan, they are apostle, but midraisa is kosher. Even if there's no edim at all, but he gave the get in front to his wife in front of 2 edim, and he says also the same din would apply by ashtar malva, that if let's say the malva has, if let's say the loiva has let's say the malva has a document that the loiva gave him, but there's no edim over there, so it's also kosher. And the halacha is the goiva, the malva could use this star even though there's no edim on the star, but there's edim that saw the transaction, that saw the malva, the loiva. Let's say give the malva the star. The halacha is that the malva now can come and take minachos mishubadim. He could take either in the case of let's say the get. Let's say this woman received the get in front of 2 edim, but there's no chasima on the star, on the get. This woman comes to her husband and says, "You got to pay up. They start going making a search, and they realize that this guy took his property and sold it out to a third person. So the halacha is aksuba. She can now collect this money from nechasim property mishubadim, which has a lien on it. So now she could use this star, this get, she could use, even though there's no chasimas on the star, but as long as 2 edim saw the transaction, she could use that to collect nechasim mishubadim, and the same thing would apply as well to the malva and loiva. Why? The whole reason why like Rashi says, maybe the edim will die, and then there'll be no testimony. So therefore they instituted, according to him, that the reason why we make the edim sign, again, is also, it's misat tikkun olam. So what do we see? Rabbi Elazar is machshir even midrabanan. So now the question is, who is our Mishnah like? Can't be like Rabbi Elazar, can't be like Amir. What's going on here? So the Gemara says,
how does that look as far as halacha and Kabbalah and Mesira? If he has to see that the husband giving it to the wife, the fact that he gives it to either Shliach halacha or to the Shliach Kabbalah, is that considered Mesira?
That's the chiddush of a shliach. A shliach is now as the shliach, it becomes like the yad of the mishaleach.
The yad of the, so seeing the fact that he gives it to the shliach is also okay. Not
Yeah. So now the Gemara says, "Ve'elo." So who's our Mishnah Meir here? Now, so maybe you're going to say that Rameir says you need to have the ksiv lishma. That when Rameir says you don't need to have the ksiv lishma, that's maybe midiraisa. But maybe midrabanan boy. Maybe the mayor holds that ksiv you need to have lishma. But the Gemara says, Nachman says, Rameir says afilu matzo ba'ashba. Even if the husband found the get in a garbage dump, and then he 2 edim signed on the get on a son-in-law and gave it to the woman. Kosher, it's kosher, even though the get, which was found in the garbage dump, for sure was not written the shame his wife. So according to him, it comes out that you don't need to have the ksiv l'shma. Now, if you're going to say that this, the Rav Nachman says, that Rameir says that if you found the get in the ashpat's kosher, that's only midiraisa, but midrabanan the get will be kosher. Why? Because it was not written in the Shema. If so, He's saying that Meir said this, if it's midiraisa, if the should have said that a get that's found in an ashpa and it was written and given should have said kosher. Or Nachman should have said that it's kosher. So the fact that he says Omer Meir must be that he's speaking. Since Nachman did not explain this, must be that he holds that his get is kosher even the chatchila, and there's no psul even midrabanan. Okay, let's do a quick hazara. We'll stop for. We have another half hour. He has to do the next recording. So let's do a quick hazara, and then we'll go to the next. Okay, so we started off. We asked on Rabbo. We said that. We asked on Rabbi who says that that the reason why they said b'fanei nechtam is because it's of the fishem b'kin l'shema. So we asked the Chayra question that you need to have two. So the Gemara says is really, so why do we believe one? So the Gemara says really in the din l'shema everybody knows about it. And the Chacham were the ones who were matzerchit, and Mishumiguna, they were mekos. The Gemara says, this is a mei, this is a kula, this is a chumrah. Why? Because if you're going to have two people that have to say b'fanei nechtav, so then the husband can't come and mar that say that it's mezuyaf. But now that you have one against one, let me believe the husband. So the Gemara says, no. Since we know that he's going to have to deliver it either in front of two or in front of three, so Mikara is going to be very, very careful not to ruin his reputation. So now the Gemara asks, according to Rav, it says, you need to have two, like every kim shtar. So the Gemara says that Eidecha Nama B'Yisurin. So it says, when do I say Eidecha Nama B'Yisurin? Is when you have a chaticha, Safek Shal Chelev, Safek Shal Shuman, which it's not, there's no chazaka that it's Yisura. But when it's Chazik Yisura, like an Eish, maybe you need to have two. So the Gemara says, no. He holds like Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says that whenever you have Eidim, which are Chasumim al Ashtar, Midiraisas, Kamish, Nechtre, Edusim Bevezdin. And the Chacham were the ones who said that you need to have also Eidim that recognize the signatures. And Mishum Miguna, they were Mekel. So the Gemara says, Kula, also it's a Chumrah. Why? Because two against, again, the same thing. When you have two, the husband won't be ma'ar. When you have one, the husband will be ma'ar. So the Gemara gives the same answer. He's going to be medayah because he knows either he has to give in front of two people, three people. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, according to Rabba, why doesn't he learn like Rabba? So the Gemara says, because what he's going to say, doesn't say b'fanei nichtav d'shma, b'fanei nechtav d'shma. So Rabba's going to tell you, really, the Mishnah should have said b'fanei nichtav d'shma. But I'm worried that if the Chacham are going to make you say all these words, you're going to come and cut off these words, and then there's going to be an issue of being mishaneh m'atbei shatav v'chacham. So the Gemara says, what about one b'fanei nichtav? This is b'fanei nichtav that he'll remember. And then he says he's going to ask about Lishma. So the Gemara says, Rabba, why doesn't he learn like Rabba? So he says, if so, it should have said b'fanei nichtav. Why does it say b'fanei nichtav? Must be you need to have Lishma. So the Gemara says, Rabba will tell you that the MS should have said b'fanei nichtav. But I'm worried that you're going to come and mix it up with other staris. And just like one aid works over here, other stars also one aid should work. Rabbi will tell you, I'll tell you there's three differences between. Number one, Yadinan, and over here you have to say B'fanei. Number two is over here you believe the woman, and number three, the Baldover is Mammon. So I would never confuse that with the regular star. So Rava says, and what about by a get if she would have said Yadinan, if the aid would have said Yadinan, we would also believe. So since I believe Yadinan, I would come and now mix up with other stars. So the Gemara says, according to Rabbi who says Ein Bikin Lishma. So now, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? Because, and like the Gemara says, because our Mishnah said you need the Ksiva and the Chasima Lishma. So the Gemara says, if it's Rameir holds that the Chasima needs to be Lishma, and the Ksiva does not need to be Lishma. As we know, that Rameir holds Ede Chasima Karti. And we brought the case of when somebody writes a get, which is Mechuba Karko, and even if it's mechuber lekarka and then he's tolish it and then signs it, when it's not mechuber lekarka, so then it's kosher. So I see that a mayor holds that again, chasima needs to be lishma, ksiva does not need to be lishma, and Rabbi Elazar is going to hold that the ksiva needs to be lishma and chasima does not need to be lishma. Why? Because according to Rabbi Elazar, I don't need to have any witnesses on there. Now the Gemara says, if you're going to tell me that according to Rabbi Elazar, that when Rabbi Elazar says you don't need to have the chasima lishma, that when Rabbi Elazar says you don't need to have the chasima lishma, that's midiraisa. But midrabanan, maybe he's going to hold that you need to have the chasima lishma. So the Gemara says you can't say that because there's the three gittin which are pasuk midrabanan, and Rabbi Elazar doesn't even make you sign lishma midrabanan. And he says we learned in the Mishnah that you have 3 Gittin which are puzzle, and if they use this get, the Vlad would be kosher. Number 1, if he wrote it with his own signatures, and if the husband wrote it with his own handwriting, or there's no signatures on the get, or there's signatures but there's not a zman, or let's say there's zman but no eid echad. So these 3 cases, midrabanan is puzzle, and according to Rabbi Elazar, he holds that even if there's no eidim on there, you could use this lechatchila, and she could use this get and goyim menechosim shubadim. And the only reason why we make the signature sign is Misat Tikkun Ha'olam. So the Gemara says, okay, you said it can't be like Rabbi Elazar, but maybe it's like a Meir, and the Meir is going to hold that Eidei Chasim Mekarti, and maybe the Meir doesn't need to have Ksiv L'Shma, Midiraisa. Midrabanan doesn't need to have L'Shma, so the Gemara Barayan says that even he doesn't need to, even Midrabanan, he'll hold that you don't need to have L'Shma.